Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to Zyxel's Tech Talk. This week's format's a little bit different. We have Justin Bush here, Vice President of Sales of Zultys, and he's been around in the industry for 20 years in telecommunications experience. He's been serving up the SMB and enterprise space. And I'm Tri Nguyen. I'm the Channel Sales Product Manager for Zyxel Networks North America. I've been in the network for 23 years with networking experience and telecom experience as well. We've been focused also on the SMB and small enterprise as well. Just as a reminder, we're giving away a $100 Amazon gift card to a random participant who stays for the whole presentation. So we hope that you stay and get to interact with us and get some things out of this discussion. And we wanted it to be an interactive process as well. So feel free to ask any questions. Please use the Q&A box and we'll try to answer them as we go through our presentation or just go through our discussion, or we'll just answer them at the end. So please feel free to use that. By a show of hands though, just to kick it off, how many of you already are doing some sort of unified communication like networking, voice, video, data, or maybe all of the above? Okay, thanks, Ray, Rob. Well, very cool. A lot of you have been doing that. And I know a lot of you have been Zyxel partners. And, I wanted to invite Justin to share with us, Zyxel, to our Zyxel partners, Zultys experience and, his experience in regards to voice and unified communications. And as you know, Justin, Zyxel is primarily focused on a lot of networking hardware. We're a hardware manufacturer. We facilitate all sorts of networking applications. So it's definitely a great topic of discussion in regards to these kinds of new opportunity related to voice. So I did a little quick introduction of you, but maybe something else you want to speak of before we go into kind of your definitions, your thoughts of what unified communication is.
No, I think it was a great introduction. I appreciate it. It's probably just been over 20 years now. I've probably been close to 23 years in telecom, right? I've had a lot of longevity with two companies. But we've seen a lot of changes in the marketplace today. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm excited you guys invited us here.
Very cool. So maybe the first bit of topic, I guess, is what do you or how do you define unified communication? And, how is it related to voice, and also like what components is that made up of?
Yeah, so the way we're looking at it today, unified communications is just that, unifying all forms of communication, whether it happens to be voice, SMS, texting, web chat, video, collaboration tools. That's really what unified communications is today. It is bringing the way that customers want to communicate to however they want to communicate. I think it's really interesting the way Zultys does it. Whether it's you hear unified communications as a service more than you hear just unified communications, I think, today. And we have a unique play, the fact that we do unified communications as a service, where you pay for it on a monthly basis. We also have it where you can own it just like you and are in the hardware manufacturing business as well.
Yeah, I could see how it's, a lot of times people talk about voice and they don't think about the communication aspects like the SMS. I've always come from kind of the POTS line side of things of telecommunication back in the old days. And so we just think about it as just purely that voice. And I think it opens up a lot, bigger, a span of things, especially with things moving into the cloud. So how do you see like voice moving from kind of the local premise people are used to, and how is that going into the cloud? How does that affect kind of business and which way to go?
Yeah, I think you're seeing a big shift. We're definitely seeing a large shift into the cloud today, right? The way we look at it, the voice still needs a network to ride on, right? Whether our hardware sits on premise or it sits in the cloud, the fact remains that we still have to have a really good network to be able to provide a really good voice experience at the end of the day. But we're definitely seeing the hockey stick on the voice side of stuff moving into the cloud. We still are growing on the premise based as well. So I think we're just in a very unique place in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think it's also like, some people, figure everything is moving into the cloud and they don't realize maybe the local network, like you said, it's kind of the critical piece. It delivers that kind of service and you want to be able to deliver quality. So I think it's important to make sure that networks are secured, they're properly prioritized, they're managed, also visibility with that network to help you control it and also troubleshoot it. Because I think it's important to, especially for voice quality, people can hear that. You can hear when it's, there's bad audio, and they know when the quality is bad. You get dropped calls, you get like stuttered voice, all those kinds of things. And I do find it interesting though, that people can accept bad quality in cellular services, but when they have like a traditional landline or a POTS line, the expectation is that it's uninterrupted, voice. The
Mhm.
quality of the voice is of high quality. So do you see that also then kind of shifting, even though it's moving into the cloud side, there is still that expectation, right, of that uninterrupted in the quality?
Yeah, they definitely have the expectation that there's not going to be an interruption in quality, right? Even though we're relying on a couple different things to get that voice to be the same quality as that copper line. We can deliver in most cases a better experience than you can with the copper line because it has some white noise in the background, and with voice over IP, it's really nice that there's no noise, there's no packets, so it's dead quiet, which probably leads to some cases where people are thinking the call dropped because there's just no packets going across. But at the end of the day, I think, yeah, it's definitely something that's changing.
That's again, it's interesting to see that and hear that, especially because we're not in that specific
Yeah.
space. And so hearing some of that information is really helpful for us,
Yeah.
especially building out networks.
Yeah, I think it's really important, right? You kind of hit the nail on the head. With a cell phone, people definitely are much easier to just hang up and call back, right? I was on a call earlier, somebody was echoing, and it was on their end, and we were talking, and I was like, oh, just hang up and call back.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like used to it just because I use my cell phone so much traveling. I was like, oh, just hang up and call back, and I knew it was on his office line, right? And he
Yeah.
was kind of frustrated and didn't want to hang up right away. And I think that's what you get is people kind of say, oh, it's a bad experience, but the reality is it's voice over IP.
Yeah. Very cool. So what kind of, I guess, vertical type applications, what benefits you see there, or maybe there's specific benefits to using kind of more unified approach of communication? Like which verticals are more affected? Or what do you see out there? How can our partners take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think, Tri, that's a really good question. When we think about that and what verticals does voice over IP work for, it really kind of goes across the board. I'll tell you that we do really well in the medical space. Like it's our number one vertical market today. And I think it's unique again in the way we deploy through that space. Obviously, there's a lot of money in healthcare today. There's some compliance that makes it really important, right? From the security side of the network, from our side, it's being a HIPAA compliant system. So for us, that's a really big thing to have. Having somebody that's there as well that can handle their network and give that quality of voice is really important. We look at, I think you guys do a lot in senior living facilities. We do a lot in the long-term healthcare as well. You can get into the education space, and we do great within that education space. We do really good in banking. I can't list off all the vertical markets because that's just not fair. But I think what we really focus on is more technology-driven organizations. People that really want to unify that communication, right? You look at what most people were looking for before, it's just dial tone and how many buttons on there. Today you look at what kind of software can you help with, what integrations can you do? How do we really help drive the business into a better place? And that's really what we do. And along with somebody that's doing the network, you can guarantee you're going to deliver a much better experience than not pulling along in that network as well.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned like HIPAA compliance, a lot of these too, and we run into that with our partners where they are deploying maybe the Wi-Fi network, and
Mhm.
they're being asked to provide and facilitate this. And I don't think people realize or think about HIPAA compliancy on kind of the voice side of things as well.
Mhm.
It's kind of a part of the whole package to make sure you're compliant on how your information is getting sent. So I think there's a definite collaboration in terms of making sure your network is not only delivering product or delivering the application itself, whatever it may be for communication, but then making sure that it's also secure and compliant to those those
Mhm.
things like HIPAA. We see that all the time as well, and I think there's something where people don't think about or realize it's maybe funny thing is that they're in the healthcare, but they don't think about the insurance side of things where people can get
Mhm.
attacked or compromised on the network, and that affects communication, not only data, right? But there's also productivity that goes down when you can't
Mhm.
communicate via email, through internet, and especially now people are so dependent on the cloud aspect where things are moving to the cloud. That becomes your bottleneck. That becomes your critical
Mhm.
piece if that goes down. And so there are all sorts of aspects within the network from our side that allows for you to make sure that your network is robust multiple internet connectivities, load balancing, WAN failover, or dedicated traffic, and then prioritizing that as well, making sure that all works. And I see that in some verticals where maybe people are going to a senior living facility and they're doing primarily their entryway is to they're being asked to add guest network Wi-Fi, right? They're being asked to put in, as these people are moving into senior living facilities, and they're the generations that are have been tech savvy. They've been exposed to the internet overall. The expectation is that the facility itself is going to have adequate connectivity for them and for the guests that come. And on top of that, then the communication piece, for the private use, for the building, for the owners, whatever to be used, is also then needed. So now I see that convergence of voice people becoming network people also leaving and doing more of the voice side as well, because they're just kind of the expectation that the network is going to carry the whole thing. So sometimes you go into a location. I don't know how many of your partners have run into this, where they may go into a facility. Maybe the existing equipment doesn't facilitate the technology. They're trying to do PoE. They might have some old switches that are there, and you think you could just turn it on, and maybe even the facility manager or the the owner of the building, or they basically say, well, I have switches already, I don't need them. But then that becomes a very difficult situation. How does your partners deal with that sometimes?
Well, that's a great question. I think in some cases they'll kind of push the agenda that they have if they have the switches, but when they don't have them, a lot of times what they're doing is farming them out, right? The reality is they should be going in and making sure that network is the best network possible. One of the things that we help our partners do in the medical space is become HIPAA compliant, because I think everybody should. I think it's a great way to raise the bar on your competition. I'm sure your people going out and deploying the network, your partners should also have that same mentality, right? We need to keep people out of the accounts that we're in. I think it's just really important to be able to do and provide that high level, right? Knowing what we're going to deploy, especially in that medical world, that long-term healthcare world. You have to protect people in that role.
Absolutely. So Ray had a question. How can a smaller company start to take advantage of unified communications?
That's a great question. So Ray, I think I'm going to answer something. So from our perspective, we have the ability to deploy an agent world. If you don't have the voice experience and want somebody to do it, Zultys has the ability to actually have an agent model where we can help you deploy the product. We essentially maintain the product. You can maintain the network. And I think what that really does is leads to a really good experience. We know it does, right? When you're the person that's maintaining that network that the voice is riding on, it just makes it much easier to troubleshoot. I think, we've talked about this before. I think one of the things that you get is somebody's always trying to not share a customer, right? So if somebody else is managing the voice and you're managing the network, they're probably trying to blame you at the end of the day for that voice over IP system not working. And hey, by the way, I just happen to also supply this networking gear that can come in and replace it, and it'll be a really good experience. Well, the reality is they're just kind of blocking each other out. So we see it as something that we all kind of need to evolve to be the same, right? We need to manage both the network and the voice so we can ensure that there's a good experience. There's lots of other things that I would tell you that we should be able to deploy today for a business, right? I think there's everything to go in. It's one hand to shake, one throat to choke at the end of the day. And that experience is what customers are looking for, right? They're looking for that one partner to be everything for them and not go, hey, I got this network person, then this phone person. I've been having a lot of those conversations lately about how do we go back in and make sure our customer base isn't open for our competitors to come in, because that's essentially what it is. If you're not talking to your customer, your competitor is at some level. So how do we close the doors where they just say, hey, I don't need it. I've got Tri, or I've got Christopher Boyes who takes care of me, and it's absolutely perfect. I don't need anybody else to look at it.
Yeah, especially when there's no issues, no problems. There's definitely there's that aspect that people won't complain about it. And so, Zyxel also helps in facilitating that as well. You kind of brought it up to the controlling the entire solution and for small, maybe even from the networking perspective, you may have just a few locations that you're trying to manage and you're trying to handle both the network and the voice side. the Zyxel Nebula platform is kind of that too. It's scalable so that you can deploy one switch, one gateway, one access point, and have that network visibility. And I think part of the control that's kind of needed and the importance of it to control the entire solution is that you have, like you mentioned, customer loyalty, you have that stickiness of the customer, you're closing those doors, like you mentioned, because the vendors want to come in and they want to do it their way. How many IT people have come into a deployment and said, I'm going to replace it with the best in brand and just replace the network. And the customer is left, with the bill because he's like, I just replaced it with the previous guy, the entire network. But he's like, well, I'm not used to using that kind of equipment, and I want to be part of that service. So it's really important for you to close those doors. But with Zyxel, the visibility that it allows for you to have, it gives you an aspect that you didn't have before when you were just deploying typical voice, right? Before you were just deploying maybe even unmanaged switch. Its primary focus was just to power on the phones, the desktop phones, and to give you connectivity. But all of the prioritizations or traffic control or even visibility of that kind of traffic is kind of disappeared. And I think with Nebula and the powerful platforms that are there, it gives IT professionals, gives you, VARs, partners, system integrators, that visibility, even for a small customer, in case of like troubleshooting, or to be able to take proactive approaches. How many times have you probably gotten, with even like older technology of voice, where someone would call in and complain, well, my voice quality is bad. And you go, well, I have no clue why. It just is. I'll just try to replace some equipment, maybe get a bigger pipe. You can only blame some things. And again, that's kind of that blame game they're going, but you really don't know. And I think that visibility into a network to see how things are connected. Is there somebody on the network that is, causing some sort of traffic storm, or they're compromised with the virus, and all of that could be affected, especially if the network's not segregated too, right? People are just, I'm just going to get a switch that's unmanaged. I'm just going to throw all traffic, and then I'm being asked to put video, voice, data, guest network access, all on the same, subnets, all on the same network, and finding out that there's some sort of problems. And I think that's, with voice, it's so critical, and you can hear all of that, issue that comes out with voice, that it's noticeable right away, and people will complain about it. And so I think that, I think the reliability, competitive product to put in there, that visibility is really important.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Troy. I think, we run into this a lot where you see somebody saying, my network's fine, here's how much bandwidth I have. But, at the end of the day, what you don't find out is there's 7 people streaming stuff all day long, every day, and it's just getting chewed up, and there is no prioritization for the voice, right? And now the voice is just getting lost because somebody, everybody's streaming music today, everybody's streaming videos. I would admit that I've been on YouTube during the course of a business day, right, and checking stuff out. And I think that's just where you run into some trouble. And with that visibility, I think it helps. That's where you see the good experiences. Our partners that offer everything, they do much better than the ones that don't offer that network solution as well.
Just to remind you that this is being recorded as well. So whatever statement you just had cannot be used against you. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So, I think that's a really good, aspect there. And I think part of it, some people think maybe on the voice side, it's new to them. We're networking people and we won't want to get into the voice side, or even vice versa. People on the voice side of things don't want to get into the networking side, and they kind of leave it there. How do you see, why is that important that, they should kind of consider both aspects of that, voice and the data side?
Well, I think from the network side, if you're not doing voice, right, it's an easy way to close off the door for your competition. But more importantly, I honestly believe, and we work with people all day long, I think it allows you to open a door really easily. Voice is something where people are willing to give up a phone bill and have you analyze it, right? Because sometimes it's viewed as a commodity. Now, I don't view it as a commodity because we really want to sell a solution, and we really look for what we're able to help a business with. But when you look at how do I open that door, voice is just a really easy one. Hey, I think I might be able to save you some money. Can I get a copy of your phone bill? That's an easy one for people to do. Hey, can I look at what your network setup is and look at everything going on? I think some people tend to hesitate on that. Let me do an analyzation of your network. Well, hold on, I don't know you yet, Tri. That's a little bit, whatever. Let me get to trust you. With voice, it's like, oh yeah, phone bill? Sure, here you go. I've got it. So it's an easy way to walk in the door, and it allows you really to sell more of what you want to sell as a partner, right? And that's what we focus on at Zultys. We want to do the right things for everybody. We're a company that likes to say yes, but I think really the right thing is to help you sell more of what you really want to sell in your core business. Sometimes we're the primary, sometimes we're the secondary, but we work with lots of companies that are MSPs, we work with lots of office equipment companies. They do everything except for voice, and they get into voice and they're like, oh my gosh, it's just so much easier to walk in, get a phone bill, and start the conversation, and easier to tack stuff on as you go. Hey, by the way, trying to get net new customers, I also do this and I can do this, and here's where we can go, and here's where you start building the trust is with that voice solution.
So what kind of new maybe voice or technology that you've seen that's offered on your side that kind of helps to get your foot in the door as well? I mean, of course, you said, show me the bill, I can save you some money, but then there's also feature functions sometimes that people go, you know what, I haven't thought about that kind of messaging or that way to communicate, or how I'm communicating with my employees or with my customers. What is the thing or two that you see people are kind of gravitated towards and go, you know what, I'm willing to get that upsell or to move to that because of that kind of service?
Yeah, I think today when you look at the marketplace, right, because of the pandemic that we just went through, really the big things are, how do we start collaborating better with our customers, right? How do we bring them into our network without really having them inside the network? Can I do chat with them all day, right? Can I collaborate and do a video call? Can I do screen share with them? Can we do something like we're doing today, right? Zultys has the platform to do all that. So we really want to go in and talk about that. But the bigger thing that we see a lot of today is APIs and doing integrations into software. How do I streamline your day-to-day business? How do I make it better? The other thing that we talk a lot about is customer experience, right? What's your user experience? I think that's really important because we do everything in one easy to use single pane of glass. That's super important. But really, what's your customer experience like? And I think that word gets thrown around a lot today in unified communications. And people say, oh, we can improve your customer experience, but all they're really doing is doing a drag and drop transfer, right? They've got some software that allows them to do a transfer. Well, I got to tell you, Tri, I've never heard anybody say, hey, Justin, my experience is better because you did a drag and drop transfer. Nobody knows that at the end of the day, right? That's just not something that people say. But yeah, did I take a note on a phone call and move it between people and have somebody say, hey, Tri, I see you're calling about this, and really improve the customer experience? And that's really where we focus, is how do we help, and we educate our partners on it. How do we educate them on how to go show them a real customer experience improvement versus, the fluff that you see in some marketing today and saying, oh, I can drag and drop and that's great. Yeah. Sometimes that's not it.
Ray had also another question, just like kind of maybe if there's something you can share on kind of what's next in unified communication. Like, what do you see on the horizon? How are people collaborating better? Is there something there that you're seeing more integration? I know from the networking side with newer technology, there's always, Wi-Fi 6, there's better mass communication because of more and more devices are on the network. So how do you, we're facilitating that. So I know some voices operating on kind of the Wi-Fi, so maybe using the Wi-Fi technology and Wi-Fi 6 or 6E is helping to transport, more clients without overloading, being able to, again, prioritize, keep people on their separate networks. So we're going to do that delivery method there, of course, with high bandwidth, high 2.5, 5 gig, 10 gig, type technologies to push this data in the local network. And then, of course, WAN speeds, we know from service providers are looking at beyond gig. It's already going to 2.5 gig and beyond in offerings. So how does that also affect maybe that communications? I kind of think, probably more video related, but, how do you see that?
Yeah, I think video is obviously important, right? I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg on the video, but I really see it pushing, and we're doing now more video on the mobile app, right? Treating that video like a phone call on our mobile app, delivering our contact center on there. I believe we're going to see a lot more experience where your mobile app needs to work just like your desktop software or your web interface software, right? And I think that's really where we're going to go down the road of that mobile app is just going to become more important. Because I got to tell you, more people get worried about losing a cell phone than they do about misplacing a car. And I can speak from personal experience because I misplaced the car for 6 weeks, living in Chicago and taking a train everywhere or an Uber. And I didn't panic. It was no big deal. But when I lost my cell phone, it was like a holy cow type of moment, right? Like that was like, I really need to have that. So I think mobility is really where you're going to start to see the focus on the experience that you would normally have at home or in the office, moving into that mobile app more and more. And we're already delivering that, and we're really staying focused on continuing to further the video and the collaboration piece, because I just think that's important. How do you bring that customer inside of your organization to make it easier, right? If I don't have to guess if you're on the phone, if I can see from a distance from my location, if you're on the phone to start a call or a chat, then it becomes really convenient and you really start improving that experience.
I like how you said you misplaced your car for 6 weeks. So
I did. It was an accident.
I think that's, the other thing too is I hear POTS lines in general kind of going away. What do you see? Like, how quickly do you foresee that, and how can partners be more proactive in that? Obviously.
Yeah, that's going at a rapid pace. I was actually just with somebody last week, and they said they had 5 lines, and AT&T was moving their bill to $1,000 a month for 5 POTS lines, which just seemed, I don't even know how they're doing it, right? Or if they're really going to do that, and it's just kind of a ploy to get them to move to their hosted voice solution. But the good news is it opened the door for our partner, and now they're in there talking to them. So I think you're going to see an acceleration of POTS lines going away, people really trying to make a decision. And I think the unique thing is do they want to rent it, put it in the cloud, or they want to buy it? Really, it's up to the customer at the end of the day.
Very, very cool. So, I also wanted to share with our partners here on the webinar that, Zyxel's been working with Zultys to test and verify our hardware products and to make sure that they work nicely with each other. Especially with voice, there's configurations, there's optimizations, or just making sure things are prioritized and configured correctly. And I like to have your, best case scenarios, make sure you're following, best practices. And we have typical kind of case scenarios usage for smaller and larger sizes. But we want to be here to help also partners on the voice and networking side to get that grasp on how to deploy these kinds of equipment. Because again, it can be scary if you've never done it before, but I think some of your agent programs and using like a Nebula portal program, it allows for you to kind of get networks up very quickly without having to know, to be an expert in it yet. But, you'll learn over time, and it's not as scary or as hard as you think it may be. So we definitely work into that to make sure that the quality of the product there is, in the configuration, so that the experience of the user is not a case where people, can't deploy it and, they don't feel like they're the guinea pig, right? Like they're your first customer ever. So we're here to help you feel that way as well.
Absolutely. I think the interop that we're working on is really important, right? Like it'll just make it easy for everybody that's transitioning from maybe not doing voice into voice, right? That network side of it, just having the configuration on what it is. And for our partners coming over, same thing, right? Just being able to know what the network is, it makes it not very scary. I can tell you after 23 years in voice, it's not very scary. It's probably a lot like your industry. I think we talked about it. There may be a few acronyms that you don't know, but the good news is Google works and you can pretty much find every acronym you want.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of it too, is with your, your configurations on your side, working with us in Nebula. The cool thing about any of these products is that once you have this configuration kind of narrowed down to a specific type of customer, you can literally copy, paste, cookie cutter them, and clone different sites so that you can move it to additional customers. So you can just say, well, I may have a retail that may do like 5 different sites, or maybe types of customers. Like you said, healthcare, you may be working with a doctor's office and you want to do their data, you want to do their, guest network Wi-Fi, as well as their voice. So once you have your switch gateway access point configured within the Nebula platform, you can now cookie cutter that to any other, doctor's office that you want, or that you win over, and just make some minor changes in the cloud, and boom, you're ready to go. And now that the quality's been tested, it's solid in terms of security, prioritization, and then that voice quality that's going to be going on that network is going to be as optimal as possible.
100%.
Robert did have a question too. What phone sets do you support?
Robert, that is an absolute fantastic question. I'd love to answer. Today, we support our Zultys telephones. We have our own OEM manufactured telephones. We got a full family suite of telephones. We support Polycom telephones. Essentially, we're an open standard SIP product, not open source. Open standards are code from the ground up. So we actually have the ability to support an open standard SIP phone as well. But I would tell you, you're going to get the best experience with our OEM manufactured telephones, just because we have firmware installed at the manufacturer level before they're shipped to us, and you just get a much better experience with them at the end of the day. But again, Polycom phones, no problem. Any open standard phones, Yealink telephone can work on the Zultys platform as well.
That's very good. I mean, I like that interoperability, and that's how we collaborate and get this unified communication thing going. Do you have any? I mean, how's your partners' experiences, I guess, using your products, and what have your partners said? Any of your partners have anything to say?
Yeah, so I'm not going to give the partner's name. We actually have a really good partner and we have several of them. I think I see a couple that are on the call today that utilize both Zultys and the Zyxel product lines. And I got to tell you, it's been nothing but a great experience. We work with Target Distribution, your distributor, really closely, and they brought us together. And I think it's really important, right? So we have a great experience across the board from the partner side of it. They really don't, when they're doing both the Zyxel and Zultys, a lot of times they're not switching back and forth, right? They really like the deployment of it, the ease of use, and really the quality of it. At the end of the day, how good the experience is, why would you go anywhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want, is that stickiness of partners and being able to, again, use one solution, because once it's like a classic engineering, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So if it ain't broke, no one's complaining, network's humming. We have an ISP, a partner of ours as well. He says, if I get 0 calls, I'm happy, right? So there's no reason for me to change the network if there's no issues at all.
If it's working, it's working. We look at it at this as, it's a great way to increase margins, right? Adding the voice to it, it's a great way to increase your customer loyalty, right? We just want to make sure that we're helping your business, right? At the end of the day, this is easy math, right? If you're successful as a partner, Zultys is successful. Probably the same way for you guys, right? If the partners are successful, we're successful at the end of the day. So that's really what we focus on, is making sure we're delivering the right solutions, the right product that's super reliable for everybody.
Very cool. Very cool. Anything else you want to add? Just as I guess, as you're going to be speaking again, I'll just want to remind you, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A, and we'll answer any questions now, if you have those. But our marketing team will run a raffle based on, the record data from this webinar, and we'll reach out to you and make an announcement on the winner for that $100 Amazon gift card. So, I mean, any last statements, I guess, you have?
Well, I'll get to it, but I think Robert just asked another question. Where's our customer staff located?
There is.
How do I get programming changes on my phone? So, Robert, our customer support staff is located all over the U.S. We're all U.S. based. We don't put everybody at our corporate office in Sunnyvale, California. We've had this model since I started in 2011. We find the best people where they are and let them reside there. Programming changes on the phones. We have our cloud desk support team. And I really appreciate you asking this question, because one of my favorite things to talk about is our support. We have an average hold time for end customers. They can all call into our support. Our average hold time was 16 seconds last year from an agent perspective. So if your customer needs support on a product, the reality is they're probably going to get picked up on the ring, and it's always going to be somebody based in the US. And they can all manage phones from remote. It doesn't have to be there locally.
Very good. Like also on the, I guess, the networking side of the business too, Zyxel, ours is US-based tech support as well. You can call in, and you also have your sales representatives and system engineers to pull upon in case of any issues, questions, pre-sales, post-sales, all of that within the US. So we're here to support our customers and our partners as well.
Yeah, well, I think with that, Tri, I really appreciate the conversation today, letting me come on and talk to your partners about why we see voice and networking making sense together, right? I think there's just a lot of advantages for everybody on this call, if they're not doing voice, to look at it. You know, everybody wants to make it easy at the end of the day and not put a lot of effort into it, right? We are going to put the effort in to make sure that your customers are taken care of. If it's something you want to do, is open that door to voice and really help grow that customer loyalty and increase some of your margins.
Absolutely. I also want to thank you too, Justin and Zultys, for joining me here on this Tech Talk. I hope for our partners and people who have been attending, I hope it's been helpful. Just this conversation and the discussion that we had to, you figuring out whether you want to add different aspects of the unified communications to your offering. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or your sales representatives, your sales account managers. My email is tri@zyxel.com. And if you want to reach Justin as well, you can reach through one of us and we can, forward any questions through that. If there are any last questions, we're going to be here for just the next few minutes. If not, then I will make some other statement and close it out. But I appreciate everybody who's been here and the questions have been asked and the discussions that we've had. So so far there is no other questions. So I think we did a good job here, Justin.
All right, we answered everybody's questions, Tri. I really appreciate having calls like this.
Oh, Wayne just came in with a last second. Do we have a preferred switch family for QoS with VoIP? So that we have, it depends on your customer. On the switch side, there's always the factor of budget. People want to spend a certain amount. So we always have good, better, best. Our preference is that you use some sort of managed type switch, whether it be web managed or fully layer 2 managed. It just depends on, again, the level of security you want to implement, maybe the power that you're trying to implement for the voice. But anything that is then managed within the Nebula platform is what I would suggest, because of that visibility, because of the ease of use, because of the deployment capabilities of it. You can expand, past the areas of your own, driving control. So you could become a nationwide kind of customer or partner if you wanted to, and have somebody who's on location that just has to do the basic installation, right, of the equipment, or even a self-install kit. You have that opportunity to scan the devices before they even leave your prem or be shipped to your customer, and be added to the Nebula Cloud, be programmed, and all it needs to do is go online. And once it's online, you'll have access to all the QoS capabilities, your VLAN capabilities, bandwidth control, and mitigation. And then when you add security to that, then you have control over the content. You have control over maybe things that are affecting the network. I think one aspect we didn't touch on, which I did have in a previous kind of webinar, on how to securing your network, especially for voice applications, because you never know when there's a guest network or even your existing customer or employee. He may bring home a virus infected, or bring to the network a virus infected laptop. And that's trying to open up tens of thousands of sessions out to the internet looking for other hosts, right, to infect. And if you have no control over, those session limits within the gateway side of things as well, then all of a sudden your device could be overwhelmed, and you have 3 or 4 of these devices. It can actually take down networks, to make sure that people then, any kind of services, whether it be data or voice, is not, doesn't work anymore. Rob did ask, where can I find technical info on setting up auto provisioning on Zyxel devices? So we'll reach out to you. Send us an email, Rob. We can get our support team to send you some of the documentation on auto provisioning. But really, it is within the Nebula platform. You can go to nebula.zyxel.com and jump into the demo. Or if you have devices that are there, we can also help to getting you some NFRs or demo units out there, so you can test out how the auto provisioning works. But literally, it is a QR scan of the device or the box, and putting it and adding it to your Nebula account, and choosing which site it belongs to, which organization it belongs to, and then going into that configuration of that site and device and making that configuration on the cloud. And then once the product gets internet connectivity via DHCP, it will dial home and basically go to Nebula and say, here I am, who do I belong to? And it will download its configuration files and its updated firmware, and then be good to go. So it's really a simple and easy process, and we can help you with that onboarding, especially after that first time. It will really help you to understand kind of the process and how easy it is. You're welcome, Wayne. We'll have support message you there. Just send me an email so that I could forward that on to our support team. Well, then, if there are no further questions, again, I thank you, Justin, for your time and being able to share all of this about communication. I learned a lot. I hope our partners learned, something new here as well, and it was beneficial. So we're going to run the raffle. We have to do it after the fact, so we have to look at all the record data, just make sure that the people who qualify are the people who have stayed here, up to maybe the Q&A section. So there's some leeway there, or maybe some people who've joined a little bit late. It's okay, but the primary of that. So we'll make an announcement through the email through our marketing team there. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for spending this afternoon with me. And again, reach out to me if you need to. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. We'll see you as well, Justin. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Talk soon, everybody. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Take care.